And to be honest, I am probably just always going to say if guns did not exist, there is not a necessary reason that we would have for inventing them, despite all of those weird historical reasons why we need them or something. Maybe we wouldn't, maybe our relationship with Native Americans would be a whole lot different if we didn't have guns. Maybe we wouldn't even be on this continent. Maybe that would be a good thing.
No.
If there hadn't been some kind of like European conquest of other places. Yes, correct. We wouldn't exist the way we are existing right now. But why is that given as a good thing? Welcome to The Well, where we get together and talk about life, death, and everything in between. I'm Pastor Carrie, and my favorite lettuce is Boston Bib lettuce.
My name is Jay, and my favorite jelly beans are the purple Starburst jelly beans. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a very berry bag. Yeah.
Is it other Starburst flavors too, or just that one?
This purple, blue, red.
Ooh.
I just had some last night. They were really good.
But have you had the Dr. Pepper ones?
Oh, I like Dr. Pepper ones.
Jelly Belly.
Yeah, they're good.
All right. I'm willing to change my favorites for jelly beans. As you may notice, see, or hear, Pastor Tim is not recording with us today. He's not feeling well and sore throat, and so we wish him well and record a couple of these without him and miss his presence here, but he'll be back next time.
All right, get well soon, Tim. But you know who is with us today is our good friend, Mel.
Hey, Mel.
Hey, Mel. How's it going? Pretty good. All right, excellent. Mel is a spicy little character who lives at the bottom of the well where we meet and talk. And he's been living there for quite some time, right, Mel? Yeah, and he collects all of the conversations that he overhears people having at the top of the well. Then he writes them down and kind of just keeps them and curates them in case anyone ever stops by and wants to have a good conversation. Right, Mel? Yeah. So he's going to lend us some of those topics today and see what we can come up with. So should we get started? All right, here we go. Down to the bottom of the well. I wonder why he goes into the water, because his little chamber isn't in the water.
Right.
It's to the side of the well.
He
could just go down to his chamber, but I feel like he goes into the water and then comes back up to the...
Speaking of spicy little character.
Right. Who knows the mind of Mel?
Yeah.
Right?
Not us. Yeah.
No, that's exactly... Oh, here he comes. Oh, shh. Okay, here he comes. Perfect. All right. Thank you, Mel.
Sometimes the smaller papers are the ones that scare me as I open them.
Yep.
Oh, I already got my answer. Okay. Yep. Do you see God as male or female, both, neither, or other?
All right. Interesting intro into a Christian gender study. I think it's much well beyond anything that we can imagine, because I think God is well beyond anything that we can imagine. Gender is something that happens in the experience on this planet in myriad different ways. I don't know if that's part of God's sort of creating humans in God's image or not, you could argue then that God would be obviously both genders, since we are created with different kinds of genders, or God is all different kinds of genders put together. But does that just even mean that God doesn't have any genders, or it's a completely different thing? So I imagine it's completely different and beyond anything that human beings could understand.
Yeah, I think God is beyond gender, personally. And I think because God is infinite and was before things existed, is now and will be after existence, whatever that means, that being made in God's image, and however we as humans, as finite perceive gender. You could be a part of God, but I would never feel right saying that then that is God, because God is so beyond that. In just for where I land in Scripture and learning about God, and you mentioned in the episode before this one about a class I'm currently taking called Systematic Theology.
I was about to reference that class as well.
And so full disclosure, just for everybody to know, literally just got done co-writing a paper with two others where we were acknowledging gender or non-gender of God. Wow. As part of acknowledging the Nicene Creed. Because God is named as Father, talking about if that gender's God, or if we use that because it's the name Jesus uses, as Abba, as a loving one, right? And so, So, anyways, very much so on my mind right now. But yeah, if God created out of nothing, that means God existed before our ideas of gender existed, and so for me, that's enough to say. Beyond that, whether God possesses those things that we see as gender, I would say yes, because we're made in God's image, but beyond that.
Yeah, I interestingly was going to briefly touch on that too, that oftentimes the argument for keeping God as Father and He comes from the fact that Jesus pretty explicitly invites the followers into a relationship with God as Father, right? So to have relationship with God as Father is to follow where Jesus is leading, is I think sometimes one of the things that people talk about. I feel that all things being equal, that could be interesting, but all things aren't equal. We have a patriarchy that's really old and really powerful. Jesus lived in that patriarchy too. I wish Jesus sometimes had used some different words.
Yeah.
And we have stories about Jesus, right? Jesus didn't write a book. Jesus had relationships. And the people who were in relationship with Jesus told stories about what Jesus taught. And those stories got written down by people who operated inside a very powerful patriarchy.
Yes.
It frames the Christian faith dogmatically. So I like to invite people out of that patriarchy that frames dogmatic Christianity, because I think we have the choice to do that if we would like to. And I'm afraid that picturing God as a father sometimes can be not helpful.
Right. Yeah. Yes, I agree. And in telling those stories, even within that, the patriarchy and all of the just endless harm to right up until today, and unfortunately tomorrow too, right? that it is and has caused. Even within that patriarchy, Jesus has revealed other things that show that God is beyond that as well, right?
We do have other images
Right.
from Jesus.
Yeah, explicitly, right?
Absolutely. We have gardener, right? We have mother. We just read that last night, the scripture of mother hen. So there are others. Mm-hmm. We just don't have a prayer that includes them that we all memorize, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And a creed.
That then gets written into creeds, right?
Right.
Complicated, but also I want to say with you, obviously not for you, because I'm not here to mansplain anything. But I want to say with you, in partnership with you, that I think it's really important that we see beyond that patriarchy, that we see beyond the maleness that in our finiteness we can give God, and understand that we can work together to have conversations to understand the pain that causes in our culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think if we wanted to make this question even more interesting, we we could say, I make an argument for pre-incarnation and post-resurrection, Christ also being non-gendered. Is the eternal word a man? Probably. I mean, no. I'm going to say probably not. No.
Right.
So
No,
we could talk about that too, right?
And there's nothing that would point to why Jesus would be
Right. Right.
other
And
than
that's-
our one example in human form.
right.
Now, many stories, but of one example.
Right, exactly. So I think that's an even more interesting conversation. And then with the language that we use about with son, father and son is, So anyway, we could go on, I'm sure.
Yes.
For such a short question.
See, I'm telling you, Mel gets us with those. I appreciated this conversation with you and see us continuing this
Definitely.
off camera as well. I think it's a really important conversation.
And I think even as we talk about taking classes and different perspectives and certainly some dogma that's associated with it, I think the most important thing is that we talk about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Just have the conversations,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right, Mel. Oh, he's tangled up. Oh, here he is. Yeah, all right. You're going to, he's going to just go down right to his chamber this time. He's going to try and skip the water.
Now he's being extra spicy. He heard us.
All right. He's going to see. All right. He's going down, but there's no splash. Oh, all right. We'll see what this does to the question.
Yeah,
We'll
see what happens.
What if he never comes back? Because he finds like some tea down there and like maybe a crumpet. Oh, no. Oh, nope. He's coming back here.
Reminder that it's much better than what it's been up here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Mel never has our recipes with us. Maybe he's like jealous. Maybe Mel should make a recipe.
Oh, so that's a big question.
Yeah. This is a big one.
Not the recipe one. I mean, maybe that is too. What would Mel make?
Yeah, what would, I don't know. I mean, Mel must have some church cookbooks down there in his library. Nothing is softer or more yielding than water. Yet, given time, it can erode even the hardest stone. That's how the weak can defeat the strong, and the supple can win over the stiff. Everybody knows it, so why don't we apply it in our own lives?
Woof.
Yeah.
There's so much I want to go into with this. So I'm going to just dig into the application piece.
Perfect.
Right away. I think it's really important with a question like this, the idea of comparing the water of a softer yielding can erode the hardest stone. It can defeat the weak, or it is weak and can defeat the strong. Please make sure we hear it that way. It can win out over the stiff. Just naming that, I think, yes, is important to apply to our life. I also think it's really important how we apply it, because I think with power and misuse, it can look and feel and become manipulation. So I just think, for instance, I think in some case, there's a resiliency to water, right? And there's applying a sense of resiliency, but also understanding that at some point when the river turns, the water turns with it too. We can argue that the banks erode over thousands of years, but also the water, moves with it. And just thinking like, just the idea of like resiliency, that's good to a key or to a point, but also like the 2 points where resiliency can become not good. I think many listeners know I'm a huge advocate for mental health and work with our youth a lot with that. And, there's a point where you can be so resilient that you're hurting yourself. Right. And so then we got to go back to the softer part of the water, right? So sometimes we're not supposed to fight it all right now and break down all the hard things. Sometimes it's okay to be soft, and water is soft at times too. So I just think it's in the application of understanding the wholeness of this quote, because my mind immediately went to like, oh yeah, water can beat down the systems. Like, yep, want to do that work, feel it's really important, and also water is soft at times. So no idea if that's where you were going, but that's where my mind went.
No, it's good. It's good. I thought as you were talking that of course we also know that water, H2O, exists in 3 forms that we know about, right? So liquid and solid and gas, and depending on the situation, right? Yeah. So there are times when you're liquid. There are times that you're called to be solid. There are times that you're called to be gas. Okay, sure.
Yeah, let's capitalize on that. Keep going.
Because you have to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.
Let's go.
I don't know. See, we can think about that, man. I just thought up it now. I thought it up now, so I'm not sure. We can think about that. I think that one of the reasons why it's difficult to remember to remember that thing about sort of yielding and it takes time is that we're all pretty impatient. I'm impatient, right?
Me
And
too.
I don't
You know
want,
that,
I don't want it to take a bunch of time to change things, right? And water takes time to change things, and I think I would rather like not take that time. But I'm reminded of Jesus talking a lot about planting and harvesting and fruit and those kinds of things, and all of those things take time. How do we figure out who are the true prophets and who are the false prophets? By their fruit, right? Which really means we have to take the time to get to know them. And water to accomplish what it accomplishes takes a really long time. And I bet I would be more well-adjusted if I was more comfortable with how long effective and lasting change takes. Yeah. I mean, just think about for good or bad, I guess.
Yeah, and like even in the changing, if we talk about water in liquid form, even in the changing, the water is still moving.
Right.
But not, oh man, this could go all kinds of directions, couldn't it? Because like, so is water, it's in that moment, is its only purpose just to change that thing? Or is it also to like, it's a wholesome approach, right?
Right.
The reminder to us, like, like there's that change in that long-term, like, because Dave, I mean, you and I have had enough conversations. I want answers right now too, right? Like,
right.
I like action, like right now. But also, like, that change is coming, and it takes time, and how we bear our fruit, as Jesus shares in parables, right? And then also, comparing ourselves to water, we are whole beings. WHOLE. We're whole beings. And in Christ, we're reminded of our holiness without the W2, right?
Right.
But we're whole beings, so we continue to flow through the things we're called to. Wow.
Right. Yeah.
There's so much to that.
Yeah.
I'm mainly just thinking out loud, to be completely honest.
Yeah, me too. It's a lot to think through. I mean, and then if you did want to talk about like, freezing water expands it and, like moves as well, but just a lot slower, right? So glaciers actually change things a lot more profoundly, but they move tons slower than flowing liquid water.
And then glaciers, also most of the glaciers under the surface.
Yeah.
So like, whoa.
Yeah. I'm not all the way sure about vapor. I don't know. We could think more about that. I'm not sure.
Steam is used to like clean things. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out.
Like we have humidifiers. Okay.
Yeah. But we can work on that.
Yeah, exactly. We got most of it.
Please comment below on how we can make this work.
I do agree with you though too about it's easy to say you should be yielding like water, and there are times for that, but there are also times where you're invited to stand up and speak out and be strong and be that thing that the water is going around. You know, I feel like it's more of a balance than an either or.
And I, in a previous episode, I mentioned that I love waterfalls. And I was thinking about that too. Like, yeah, sometimes the beauty is in like waterfalls are actually like, you might have to help me break down this language because I don't want to use the word violent, but I don't know what word to use. Waterfalls are very active.
Yeah, totally.
Right? But they're also super beautiful. Yeah. And they also like, there's a lot of things around waterfalls where like different forms of like nature are like only exist because of what the waterfall does and like all of that, right? So there's moments where like we are to be that form of active, and then shortly after the waterfall, the water is just flowing.
Dangerous. Waterfalls are dangerous.
And they're dangerous.
In different ways for different things, right? Like the salmon going up the waterfall thing, they're in danger from the bears. But but for the bears, it's really good because they get to eat some salmon.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've taken this question where it can go for today.
Mel, can you save us, do you think? Yeah, you're ready to save us from ourselves. All right. What did you think it worked out for just without the water? No,
that wasn't it.
Needed to go back to the water. All right, here we go.
Does he have two buckets of questions?
Oh, maybe. Oh, that's weird.
Is it interesting that you had the question about water?
When he didn't go in the water, I just... Oh, Mel. Awesome. All right, here he comes. Thank you, Mel.
Okay. I'm reading. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're going to have thoughts on this one. Okay. If guns did not yet exist, what good or necessary reason would we have for inventing them?
I have had this question in a pub theology group setting in Texas. So I feel like I should get a merit badge for that.
Granted. I don't have that power, but granted.
And it's funny because now I feel like I can't separate the way I'm thinking about this from all of the things that the people said in that group, which, you know, it was like, well, if we didn't invent it, someone else would invent it, and then we would have to invent them to fight back, and like all this really complicated. And then there was like even talk of the frontierism, and then and we can talk about all of the terrible things about colonialism and racism that go with those kinds of things as well. And to be honest, I am probably just always going to say, if guns did not exist, there is not a necessary reason that we would have for inventing them, despite all of those weird historical reasons why we need them or something. Maybe we wouldn't. Maybe our relationship with Native Americans would be a whole lot different if we didn't have guns. Maybe we wouldn't even be on this continent. Maybe that would be a good thing. No. If there hadn't been some kind of like European conquest of other places, yes, correct. We wouldn't exist the way we are existing right now. But why is that given as a good thing? Mm-hmm. Why is the United States like, oh no, we wouldn't have our country? Well, I don't know. Maybe that's...
Yeah.
Maybe that'd be okay. I don't know.
But we would be somewhere. Yeah. Something.
Right.
Right. Community life. Yeah. Humanity still exists, right?
So that's, So I don't know, Jay. What do you
I think like, especially in, to contextualize ourselves, especially in United States American culture, it's so ingrained, like it's literally how we became, as you were saying, with colonialism and the
manifest destiny
that in some cases eradication of native peoples in so many areas at the hands of guns, right? And so I think it's so ingrained into who we are, really no matter what side of the aisle we stand on, for if they're good or bad, they're so ingrained to who we are. To think about it without them existing, I think is such a foreign thought.
Sure.
Right? And for me, I was just thinking, like, if they haven't existed yet, like, I pray to God that they wouldn't need to. Like, if they didn't exist in 2023, I pray to God that there's no reason that they would need to whatever years from now, right?
Right.
And yeah, they have been used for a lot of harm, and I heard and know, been part of conversations about the forms of protection as well, but we're protecting it. We're using harm to protect ourselves from harm, right? And so if they haven't existed, that's why I'm saying I pray that we wouldn't need that. But I also understand that it's complicated. But I'll stick back to if they haven't existed yet, I pray that they wouldn't need to. And I do think you can tell that I'm trying to say something and maybe not say it. I grew up with them. I go hunting. I was taught what they were made to do, and I was taught to respect that, and I was taught to understand what that means. Because I know you're watching, shout out, Dad, thank you for doing that. But also, like I also understand, because of that, I understand the complication that they are weapons that are created to harm. And as humans, when we're given power to harm things, sometimes we harm things with them. And I question sometimes if our first response to protecting ourselves from harm should always be more harm. And by question, I mean like strongly question that, right? And so I that's a tough one. I think at the end of the day, to answer the actual question, I would say if they haven't been invented, I'd pray that they wouldn't need to be. That we've figured out how to how to play in the sandbox, right? But yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe human beings aren't responsible enough, or aren't, right? I mean, yes, there are other ways to kill things and other ways to hurt people than guns, right?
Right, which is true, right?
Which is true. But guns are a really quick and easy way to not just hurt people, but to kill them.
Yeah.
And maybe we just shouldn't be trusted with that technology. And maybe that goes for a lot of war things, right? Yeah. We have a lot of war things that probably humans, should we be trusted with that stuff?
Well, and if we're getting to the gun talk, which I think we have, especially forms of them, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh gosh, yes, of course.
Especially,
yes.
if they do exist, let's talk about how, right? And yes. I'm saying that for me, it is actually directly tied to my faith and to religion and to how I see Jesus calling us to love our neighbor. I'm just going to make this really real for a second. The shootings in schools and stuff existed when I was in school, but one of my first trainings was the fire drill. Now my kids in kindergarten and second grade do the fire drill and the safety lockdown drill at the same time. First you learn how to run out first, and then you learn how to stay in and protect yourself, right? And so there's got to be an answer to that. I know we're getting beyond the question itself a little bit, but
right.
You bring up guns, it comes with a lot of things, right?
It does.
And one of the things it comes with is death. And It's something to talk about and how we care for our neighbor. And I think it's an important conversation. My hope with this is that it can be a conversation.
Yeah, again,
right?
It's just important that we keep talking about it.
Yeah, I'm thankful that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic.
That's a big one. Yeah, how are we going to transition this one?
Yeah. What does that make you think of, Jay?
I was just thinking about cherry Jello and bananas.
Perfect.
I wasn't, but I am now. Doug and I made eye contact during that. Like, I don't know how to transition this.
I got nothing for you, man. That's why I'm behind the camera.
Yeah. So I was going to come up with here's the church cookbook and church potluck related thing. Here's the reality. This is tied to Sunday for me, and it was tied to something I did after church. Fairly often after church, we would go to either my great grandma's house on my dad's side or my grandma's house on my mom's side. for lunch, and my grandma on my mom's side, well, grandpa and grandma's house, but my grandma on my mom's side, this would very often make the dinner table on Sundays, and it's cherry Jello, and then she just took the spoon and broke it all up, and then cut bananas in it, and right before dinner started, she cut the bananas and put them in, and then we would eat it, and she would call it Jello salad because the bananas were in it, and that's where I was like, oh, this could be at a potluck. Like, oh, I'm going to bring a salad and show up with bananas and Jello.
So did you have it during, like, it wasn't dessert, it was like part of the meal?
Yeah, usually it was part of the meal.
Did you have trouble eating other things?
Oh yeah, as a kid.
Especially if it was something that you didn't like.
Oh yeah, as a kid, I would.
Especially if this is sold as salad. Mom, I'm eating my
Right?
salad.
I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
no.
I'm eating my lunch. Delicious. Full disclosure, I like cherry Jello. Although it's funny, it kind of does remind me of being sick as a kid because like that was like once you got done, like you're kind of feeling better. My mom would always make me Jello because like it's mellow in your tummy. And cherry was my favorite, and still is. In fact, there isn't even a close second. Maybe strawberry. I don't know. What do you guys? What's your favorite Jello?
I was never really a Jello person.
Just didn't like Jello at all to begin with.
Well, we never had it all
You
that
didn't
much.
have it, yeah.
I was a big Kool-Aid family, and this reminds me of cherry Kool-Aid.
Oh, it does taste.
They're really similar products, actually.
It probably is the same thing, you guys.
It probably is, except
just a
one has
different-
gelatin and one doesn't.
Exactly. So yeah, true to its explanation, takes me right back to childhood. I like it.
I mean, it's just one of those things that, like, I don't like. There's nothing to like, but there's nothing to dislike. Like, it's just good. Like, I like bananas and I like Jello. So, and I actually think, like, I'm realizing as I get, maybe as I'm getting older, I have no idea. I still have a sweet tooth. I mean, I eat candy way more than I should, but Jello is a lot more sweet than I remember it being as a kid.
It's been a while since I've had Jello.
And the
it is
banana,
really sweet, isn't it?
banana does something that, like, when I have the spoons with banana, it's like better.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a super intense, like flavor.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, cherries don't taste like that. It's still my favorite Jello, but cherries don't taste like that.
They don't taste anything like this at all. Nope.
Do we have to put a rating on this, or we just say it is what it is?
It is what it is.
It is. It's good. Like it's
Okay. Yeah.
it's
I'm
true
I'm
to
down with
it's
that.
true to its being.
It is. Also, my grandma used to put bananas in Jello as well, so I'm very familiar with. And I think cherry and banana is a good combination as far as Jello flavors go. I always hated lime Jello.
Yeah.
Lime Jello is not
I'm
good.
trying to remember. I don't remember what family member it was, but would put pineapples in a certain kind of Jello, and I can't remember which one. It might have even been lime. I don't even remember.
But the worst is lime Jello with. This is not subjectively the worst. This is objectively the worst. Okay, just so we're clear. And I am a pastor, so I feel like I can go ahead and state that, right? Is lime Jello with celery and green peppers chopped up in it, and then mayonnaise on top. No.
Tell me you grew up in the Midwest without telling me you grew up in the
That is objectively the worst.
Yes.
No, really.
Terrible. Isn't that awful?
Why?
I'd be like, oh, why is there mayonnaise on it?
Also, like, is this why you don't like green peppers?
It might be. Yeah. Right?
It's like so much green.
Oh,
like,
I know.
Let's slap some mayonnaise on it.
Yeah. Oh. And probably it was Miracle Whip, right? Probably it wasn't even mayonnaise.
Extra
It was
sweet.
probably Miracle Whip.
Yeah, no.
So that would be the opposite to the God moment. So Jay, bring us home. We don't want to stop in this Miracle Whip purgatory.
God bless this mess, as I say during youth groups a lot. No, a little backstory to sharing the God moment is I had the opportunity and pleasure to, at least as of recording, would have been this past Sunday, to preach. And one of the things that in preparing for the sermon, and ended up preaching it on Sunday, was that that God meets us in the mundane, everyday life, and this past 2 mornings, I've had the opportunity, or took the opportunity to intentionally take time for myself to just go out on outdoor walks. And it was in those walks and those moments of just, kind of like one of the questions we had, I think from our previous episode about silence, but just being able to take a moment to step back, kind of away from my thoughts, the way that I let my thoughts allow myself to spiral sometimes, like, full disclosure, I do that, but be in my head, but allow myself to be outside of it at the same time, and just the way that God blesses just those daily steps, and blessing sometimes just means that I'm not alone, which is a huge thing. It's not a just, right? But like, also, I'm me, and I want answers all the time, and sometimes the answer is, "Yep, I'm with you." And the walk, thank God they both have gone safe. The walk ends back at home with all the things, right? And God walked inside that door with me too, right? And so I just being reminded of that was kind of a continuous God moment, one I hope I can remember, be reminded of in the various ways I walk in and out of spaces of daily life, right? That God goes with, and that's not true just for me. That's true for all of us, right? So yeah, that's it's my God moment, and kind of a day, hoping to become kind of a daily reflection as well. So.
Nice. Yeah. I think a reminder to all of us, Jesus doesn't talk a lot about a lot of different things that we wish he would talk about, but he does say, let the problems of today be enough for today, because they're enough. Yeah. It's hard for us as humans to do that. So, yeah, thank you for that reminder.
Thank you.
And when you're feeling like you can't believe it, get out and take a little walk. Yeah. On that note, thank you for taking your little walk with us today. It's been a pleasure. Au revoir, and God bless you.
The Well is a podcast of St. Luke's ELCA in Middleton, Wisconsin. You can follow for new episodes airing every other Thursday on St. Luke's website, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to drop a question in The Well, you can dive over to stlukes-elca.org/thewell and submit your questions there. The Well is sponsored by the St. Luke's Foundation. The foundation is dedicated to leaving a legacy for future generations. You can learn more by heading to stlukes-elca.org/foundation. The Well is edited by Jimmy Patton and produced by Doug Castle. Thanks for listening. We'll meet you next time here at The Well.